What is the absolute worst game you ever played? Maybe you thought of a game that was disappointing, or maybe you thought of a game that is filled with bugs and glitches. Although a few games I personally don't really like came to mind, I decided to find the definitive answer. I found a list of the top 100 lowest rated games on Steam, and I'm going to play them all to find out which game I personally think is the worst. Now, let's spin the wheel and get ready to go dumpster diving. Homework is crazy? Let's get right into it. Homework is Crazy, or The Homework is Driving Me Crazy in Chinese, was created by a Chinese developer whose name translates to three-legged cat, meaning someone who isn't skilled at something. Thanks, ChatGPT. Looking at the description, I'm not exactly sure what kind of game this is supposed to be. The developers say that the puzzles in the game are quite difficult. Maybe you will feel upset when you are getting stuck somewhere, but we hope we can help you understand the feeling of how Chinese parents helping their children to do their homework and the helpless feeling from a child who can't find the right answer. Anyway, don't get mad at us for can't solve the primary school homework puzzles. There's a lot of snark in that last sentence, especially since the grammar was all over the place, but what do I know? I'm assuming this game is supposed to be more of a statement than it is an enjoyable game. Instead of being a fun puzzle game like in the Professor Layton series, the developers seem to want to mimic the feelings of being a student in the early stages of the Chinese education system. The idea of facing increasingly difficult homework questions and strict parents until you inevitably fail sounds interesting, but how does it work in an actual game? Unfortunately, it's time to find out. The first thing that I notice is an ominous warning screen saying that the game is difficult and not fun at all. Well, that makes my job a lot easier. Anyway, I hope to see you all in the next episode of Dumpster Diving. Peace out. Nah, I'm just kidding. We start off with choosing our gender. Since the guy looks like the most pretentious 4-year-old ever, I'm going to pick the girl. The story starts off with a group of oh, the text changed. Okay, donkeys that. The text is off screen. Oh, here we go. They endure thousands of hardships and, oh, now there's a frog, I guess. Wait, that's the donkey's mother? Or the fairy's mother? Oh, never mind. I guess we're just gonna ignore that and look for our father now. Don't look for him. Your father is here. He has been made into spicy hot pot? What? Dad is really tragic. No, tragic. It is too painful for your dad to accompany you to do your homework, so he would rather be made into a spicy hot pot. Wow, really tragic indeed. I remember when my dad got turned into pulled pork a few years ago when I forgot to take the garbage to the curb. My mom was never the same after that. The game itself is rather simple. Every week you get a group of homework assignments sent to you in your group chat with all the other parents who will randomly complain, brag about their own kids, or just start talking about completely random topics. Sometimes the phone stays open and lets you read everything. Sometimes it closes way too fast. You complete the homework by answering these puzzles that the game gives you. There are a couple different topics like math, logic, and Chinese, as well as different types of questions like fill in the number, drag and drop, and multiple choice. If you get the answer right, you get credits, which apparently determine what middle school we can get into, and affection points. If you get it wrong or take too long, you get a short animation of your character being scolded by your parents and you lose affection. I love looking at some of these quotes though. You can see anything from, in fact, I can't do this either, to, I will beat you to death. Seems a little brutal, but hey, those first graders gotta learn somehow, right? You also have a couple other tools at your disposal. You have a give up button, which fails a question and loses you a ton of affection. The most useless tip button in existence that either gets rid of one option in a multiple choice question, or it gives you such riveting advice like make bold assumptions, all at the cost of affection. And the copy button, which passes the question, but you still lose affection. As a puzzle game, there's a few obvious flaws. There are a lot of questions that were obviously made for a Chinese audience. For example, I have no idea who this guy is, and I have no idea what he painted. I thought the answer would be Chinese landscapes, but apparently he actually painted galloping horses. It turns the game into more of a trivia game than a puzzle game. There are several questions like this, and I want to say it's unfair for the game to ask them, but I don't know what's common knowledge and I don't know what's random. When I was in elementary school, I learned all about Beethoven and Vivaldi, so maybe that's the same case here. My biggest issue by far, though, is the writing. If you couldn't tell, the English translators for this game didn't do the best job. With puzzle games, some of the fun in solving the puzzle is deciphering the instructions to sometimes find a hidden meaning. If the intended solution to your puzzle is lost in translation, it just makes it confusing for the player. This question here asks, what is the instrument called French horn? I'm guessing they want you to guess which of the outlines was the French horn, but they aren't given any indicators. So I just clicked the option that said French horn, and I was right. Now look at this next question. Here we have to find out how many people are on this bus. We know that one passenger is on the first floor and wants to go to the second floor, but he can't since the conductor says it's full. We know that there are 20 passengers on the first floor. We also know that there is twice as many blank on the second floor as the first floor. I'm assuming they mean passengers, but the question literally does not say. My first guess was 60, since I figured it was another easy easy question like the last one, and I was wrong. I tried a couple more answers before giving up. The answer was apparently 66. I get what the game was going for. You have 20 passengers on the first floor, you have the conductor, and you have the passenger in the question, which is 22 people total. Then, if there are twice as many people on the second floor as there are on the first, then there's 44 people on the second floor. 22 plus 44 is 66 people total. But according to the question, the passenger in the question is on the first floor, so he should be included in the 20. And since the question never stated if the second floor had twice as many people as the total amount of passengers on the first floor or the total amount of people on the first floor, I didn't know if the conductor was included. And don't even get me started on this question. Sometimes the translations are also wrong within the same question. For this question, we have to sort the different foods. The question mentions duck blood curd, but the bottom only has boiled blood curd. The question also mentions steamed sea bass, where there's only steamed perch at the bottom. Sure, after a quick glance, it's easy to tell what they're talking about when you realize there's only one curd and one fish, but in a puzzle game where you're timed the entire time, that's precious seconds I could spend trying to solve the puzzle. I also noticed a couple places where the text is hard, if not impossible to read, like at the top of the final exams. Speaking of the final exams, the questions here don't seem much more difficult than any of the other ones. There's a slight time limit now for all the questions combined, and that's about it. The only difference is that if you pass the test, your parent is so proud of you that you get a great gift of money to buy books, and if you fail, your parents yell at you, and that's it. Eventually, I got bored of all the questions and just kept giving up until I reached 0 affection, at which point my parents got so mad they kicked me to the curb. I don't know what happened after that since the text got cut off, so I imagine that I just got adopted by a rich family and never had to worry about homework again. Aside from the story mode, there's also a challenge mode where you have to answer 30 questions as quick as you can. From what I can tell, the questions are either the same each time, sometimes varying the exact numbers, and at least some are copies of questions from the main game, like the stupid bus puzzle. I will say though, my favorite puzzle was probably this one where you had to reorganize the numbers into ascending order. It took me way longer than it should have, but I had a lot of fun doing it. Honestly, I could forgive the game for everything if it wasn't for one thing: the absolutely awful music. You hear this? Do you hear the music playing right now? This loops constantly the entire time you're playing the game. I have never in my entire life heard a song that is so dedicated to just annoying everyone who listens to it. Forget Queen and Britney Spears, this is what they should be playing in Guantanamo Bay. I love puzzle games, and honestly, some of the puzzles here are pretty fun, but the overwhelming majority of the puzzles are way too hard to understand to make it enjoyable. Maybe that's the point of the game, but if the player doesn't know if your game is intentionally or accidentally bad, that's not a good look for you. I am rating the game slightly higher since the only bad reviews I found talked about the problems with translations, so I'm assuming that the Chinese version doesn't have the same issues. Anyway, I hope to see you all in the next episode of Dumpster Diving. Peace out.